Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 4-game series against the Seattle Mariners. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins get back to their winning ways, winning 2 in a row to close out the series after a terrible loss and then a heartbreaking loss in Game 1 and Game 2, Dan. And then this weird news breaks about Rocco. A very strange series overall, Dan.
I mean, there was a part of me that was really rooting for Game 4 to be postponed so that they might actually play it when I'm back in Minnesota. Because I looked at the dates, David. So there are 3 dates when the Twins and Mariners have days off the rest of the way. It was July 7th, August 28th, and September 22nd. I could have imagined a great trip for the Mariners team. And also I could have maybe gone to that Monday game on the July 7th. But I'm so glad they played Game 4. It was such a fascinating blowout victory for the Twins. What the heck?
A very confusing series, Dan. Just you never knew what was going to happen next. Who was going to pitch well? Who was going to pitch poorly? A couple of quick notes, though. I don't know if we have to get into the Rocco stuff now, but news broke. The team still hasn't said this publicly. Just so we understand, from what I understand, nobody on the Twins has said that Rocco has been extended into 2026, but sources have confirmed that the Twins have picked up his option. Is that true? Like, is this going to be one of those things where the Twins actually say, well, no, that actually didn't happen? Or do you think this is legit?
No, I think that's legit because I don't think Dane Hayes would have reported it unless he was sure of it. So I do think that changes the dynamic because they said that he picked it up sometime in April or May, kind of around when they weren't necessarily playing well. So sometime around that winning streak, we'll see. But that totally changes the way that you manage, I would think, a little bit if you know that your job is not on the line, at least for a year.
Well, we talked about this a lot, about the win streak, right? Because we thought that one of the reasons they won so many games is because Rocco was managing as if every game could be his last. And yeah, Dan, everybody knows there's times when you need to push the pedal down and there's times when you coast, Dan.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Like, I think that's how Rocco was managing.
Yes.
It is curious, and I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team now because they look so good in games 3 and 4, and they look so bad in game 1, certainly. But they had hoping. It's like a switch flipped somewhere in game 2. So I'm hoping that we've just watched the Twins team that we're going to see for the next couple months. We're halfway through the season.
They had a pitchers meeting, Dan, and we all know that these meetings, Dan, they make or break a team throughout the season. Whenever the pitchers or the hitters or players only or Rocco or everybody has these meetings, Dan. And I've worked in the corporate world for quite some time, Dan. And I can tell you, meetings, Dan, I am certain that all of those pitchers walked out of that room and said, well, that could have been an email.
Do you think that they were on Zoom or they were in person? Like, do you think... I just wonder what they were doing.
You're muted?
Yeah.
Hey, you're muted? Could you turn that?
Like, come on, Cole Sands, I want to hear your voice. Like, show me your face. What are you doing, Cole?
Cameras on, guys. Cameras on. It's like, can you imagine? They're all in their lockers on their laptops, like just like 6 feet away from each other. Just like
Chris Paddock is crying.
I keep
He's weeping emotionally. He's pouring his soul out. And then Johan Duran is like checking X or something like that.
Yeah, somebody's playing hearts in the background. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe this pitchers meeting does something. Maybe it doesn't. I think there's only so much you can really do. I mean, I understand. We talk a lot about the Miracle movie, right? And we talk about how the speech that Herb Brooks gives and like it just fires up the guys and whatnot. And like, yeah, in Hollywood that works. I guess, is that real life though, Dan? Like they make movies about that because I don't know that it happens in real life that way.
I do think it matters. It seemed to matter. I mean, but it was funny because Chris Paddock's argument was like, well, the analytics say actually like it was not inspirational. It wasn't from the heart. It was from like the spreadsheet. Like that's where his data was coming from.
Okay, one last note here. I don't even know why we're putting off talking about this one.
It's a
I think
great
we have just so many things to say.
Yeah.
But so the Mariners Nintendo Switch patch. Here's the thing. I hate this so much. I do not like soccer jerseys where they have like 7 companies on it. I don't like NASCAR where they have 1,000 different ads on it. F1, I've sort of learned to live with it because that's just the way it is.
Sure.
But yeah, you're telling me that a Ferrari cruising around this track wouldn't look better all red with one Ferrari logo?
Totally.
I don't think the big HP blue logo on the front of that car makes it look any better, Dan.
No, but like with the Nintendo patch, like if you remember the Nintendo controller, it was very rectangular and square, and I think that's what they're trying to capture with this patch is the squareness of Nintendo.
So
you don't
false.
think?
Okay, no. There is no chance that somebody designed it with that way in mind. It's poorly added. It's too big. You can see the corners are coming up. Do they not have the money to pay for a decent seamstress who can like put a little, round the corners and ensure that it fits the size of the sleeve well? Like, it bothers me because it looks like, how many times did my mom have to use the iron-on letters from Walmart, Dan, in order to get these jerseys? And you just hope that the letters that they get through the tournament, right? That they stay on the jersey through the tournament. We should not be talking about that when it comes to the Major League Baseball profession.
No, I think that's the part of the charm is the squareness of the Nintendo logo.
I can't believe this is what you're holding on to because it's a terrible argument.
Trying to do. I don't. Anyway,
and first of all, it's rectangular.
Well,
the Switch is rectangular.
Squareness. It's a rectangle is a kind of square, right? No, a square is a kind of rectangle. I get it confused.
Once again, Dan proving he's an English and not a math teacher.
Folders are like onions.
I'm out of my depth when we talk about math. And that way.
Is it sort of like how all thumbs are fingers, but not all fingers are thumbs?
I loved math when I was in high school, but my calling was with words, David, and not with shapes.
Clearly.
And numbers. All right.
Okay, let's go into the series recap, Dan.
Series recap.
Game 1, we have so many notes, and it's such a sad game, Dan. The Mariners win this one 11-2. You would have thought this game was a part of the Brewers series, which is how it went. The pitching struggled early. The offense went 0-for-7 with runners in scoring position. I think what bothers me about this, Dan, is that as someone who's always watching the games on delay, because I like to be able to watch everything that happens, and I don't want to be interrupted with the kids or whatever the case may be, the game, it just feels like it's over before it starts. And so I get the kids to bed. I'm all excited. I got my wife set next to me, and I'm going to turn the game on, and then it's like, oh, okay, 5 runs in the first or second inning. Great. This is going to be a fun one to watch.
Where did all these unsupervised children come from?
Yeah, I mean, Bailey Ober is the weirdest stat line. So he pitched 7 innings, but he gives up 7 runs, 7 hits, 7 strikeouts. It's like such a strange combination. We're going to talk about Bailey Ober a whole lot later, but he gives up 3 home runs. He's the length guy. He's like Chris Archer, who could go twice as long, like is what it feels like right now, how Rocco is using him. So yeah, he gave up a lot. And here's the thing, like the Twins had chances to score early, bottom of the first and second. They got 2 on, 2 outs, but neither Correa nor Buxton can deliver. And then the top of the third, Ober just implodes.
He gives up a couple of singles. The runners advance here, and then Julio Rodriguez hits a homer on a 1-2 count.
It's your favorite.
I hate it so much, Dan. A couple more singles. Buxton makes a terrific diving catch on a play on a ball hit by Polanco, actually, which is always fun to see Polanco. But then Luke Raley hits one out, and the Mariners are up 6-0, and it's like, okay, well, this was fun. With the way the Twins offense produces, Dan, there's no way they're coming back in this one.
No, but Rocco saves the bullpen, leaves Ober in through the 7th, and he actually settles in okay, obviously, after that. He gives up one more run in the 6th on a Dominic Canzone home run, who does like the Italian hands between running between third and
he
home.
Does the whole, the Vici, like he does that whole thing when he's running around third. So I like to think that him and Mickey Gasper have that sort of Italian connection.
Sure. Like it's a me, I'm Mario.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottom of the 6th, the Twins do show some offense, back-to-back home runs with Larnach and Correa, but of course, with nobody on, it's 7-2. And then Joey Wentz, who I thought would not make it through the series. He pitches the 8th and the 9th. The Mariners go to town on him in the 9th, but 4 up, so it's 11-2.
Yeah, a rough game for your Twins. Seems like it's going to be more of the same here in Game 2, Dan. But the Twins do make this one interesting, at least. The Mariners win this one 6-5. Similar start here. After Puckett gets through the first 2 innings, facing just 7 batters, he then gives up 5 runs in the top of the 3rd, Dan.
Yeah, and so it's 5-0 just like that. The Mariners have a couple singles. Crawford hits a sac bunt, reaches on a throwing error from Puckett. You're going to talk about this, I think, a little bit later. So, it's 5-0 there. Bottom of the fourth, though, Cody Clemens answers with a solo home run, his 8th of the season. And then in the bottom of the fifth, the Twins get 4 runs. Larnach doubles. Lee hits an RBI single. Correa singles. Wallner walks. France hits an RBI ground into double play to make it 5-3. And then the big hit is Jeffers doubling in 2 more to tie it at 5. Paddock finishes 5. Varland, Jack, Stewart pitch clean innings, but the Twins don't score.
Bottom of the 6th, the Twins have a chance with Wallner on 3rd and 1 out. We're going to talk more about Rocco's decision-making here a little bit later in this circumstance. But then top of the 9th, Duran comes in and he's bad. He gets an out, but then he plunks Polanco. He allows a single, and then he plunks Crawford. And Dan, I understand that he is a pitcher who has stuff that has ridiculous movement. But when you're ahead in the count, Dan...
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
Just don't hit guys, Dan. Please stop hitting guys when you're up in the count.
Yeah, because then Julio Rodriguez, who is also down 0-2, hits a sacrifice fly to right. That scores the game-winning run. And then the 9th, they just look overmatched. Matt Brash comes on. Twins go 1-2-3. 11 out of 12 games they had lost then at that point. It was looking really grim going into game 3.
Yeah, but thankfully, Dan, the Twins bounce back. They win this one 2-0 on the back of Joe Ryan, who pitches 6 shutout innings for the first time since May 16th to just make the Seattle Bats not seem like the 1920s Yankees, like
totally.
Like do something here, Twins pitching.
Well, yeah, because Cal Raleigh went 0-4 in this game with 3 strikeouts. Joe Ryan finished with 8 strikeouts. He allowed 3 hits, no walks. Twins' only runs are an RBI single by Castro in the 6th, and then a solo home run by Cody Clemens in the 7th.
Of course.
I know, exactly. And then the Twins get a shutout. It's their first since May 17th, which if fans can recall, that was the 3rd of 3 consecutive shutouts. Remember when this Twins team could actually do that? When they were one of the better pitching teams in the baseball?
Yes. I don't mean to backtrack too much. We do have to talk about the first strikeout of Cal Raleigh, because that pitch, Dan, was like...
He did not deserve that one to be a strikeout.
No. And Joe Ryan just sort of like doesn't try and look in his general direction. He's looking up in the clouds. He's watching the birds. He's like, yeah, I got away with one. It was such a bad pitch, Dan.
Yeah, so Varland, Jax, Duran finished the game. Duran gets his 11th save. I think it was only, they said on the radiocast, it was like his 2nd since like the end of May. I mean, like, he has not been in a lot of save situations, nor has he done well in them, but he gets the save here.
Yeah, and then game 4, Dan. The bright spot here, if you're a Twins fan, obviously game 3 was fun to get the win, but at no point in that game did I think 2 runs was going to win that baseball game. But game 4, Twins explode here. They win this one 10-1. There's a 4-hour rain delay, and the game starts at 4:30. Dan, if you showed up to Target Field at noon, that is 100% on you. Every weather app that you could download would have told you they will not play this baseball game starting at noon.
No, not at all. And we were doing a lot of texting, like, are they going to play this game? Or are they not? I'm sure glad that they did, of course. It ends up just kind of being a night game. And so that's what the Twins did.
Twilight, or what do they call that time between afternoon and evening?
Yeah,
it wasn't really night, but yeah. So Trevor Plouffe was in the booth for this, for the last couple of series, actually. But Joe Mauer and Brian Dozier surprised Plouffe in the booth, which I think was a fun way that Twins TV did this. So they have this whole segment where you can like ask a player. And so they had a kid ask Trevor Plouffe, if you had to go on vacation with either Joe Mauer or Brian Dozier, who would you choose? And so like Plouffe is sort of hemming and hawing, and then he finally decides to go with Joe Mauer because of his deep pockets.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there.
And I just think it's funny for a couple of reasons. First of all, so Plouffe didn't know that they came in behind him and they like heard him talking about this, so that was funny. But we have talked on this podcast many a times that Joe Mauer, not the most spend happy man. Like I just don't see him. I see him going to the cheapest all-inclusive resort in Mexico. So I don't know that Plouffe hitting him for his deep pockets is the right call here.
No, I don't think we're going to hear the story later of how Joe Mauer is like having Adrian Peterson level like financial problems. Like I don't think that we're going to hear that about Joe. If anything, it's going to be like he's putting his children into too nice of schools, and that's really going to bankrupt him. Like Cretan, St. Thomas after that.
Yeah, but even the nicest schools in Minnesota, he's going to be just fine. Dan.
Well, I would hope so. They'll just say, "Oh, you're Joe Mauer? Sure, we'll take your children. Go ahead. Go for it. Just show up at a couple golf
tournaments. Name a library after you. It's going to be great." Exactly. Anyway, quiet early innings here. SWR pitches very well. 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He could have gone deeper.
Yeah, well, he always could. I think that's never the issue. So
here's my question, Dan. Last time you said that this was a big confidence boost because he didn't have to see the lineup for the 3rd time. Do you think he should have kept, Rocco should have kept SWR in here?
No, we're going to talk about that a little bit later because he had 82 pitches. No, you're okay. 55 strikes. I thought this was the perfect amount of SWR, I think.
perfect. It's like a recipe. You just get a little
just
touch
a dash,
of SWR.
a
just
tablespoon, maybe an extra teaspoon. But no, that was enough of SWR.
A sprinkling of Ryan Jeffers RBIs. Anyway, so bottom of the fifth here, Buxton draws a walk, and then he advances to second on a failed pickoff attempt. Doesn't matter, though, because Trevor Larnach hits the ball to deep right center, so the Twins are up 2-0. And then we're going to talk a lot about this sort of explosion that happens in the sixth inning, and then also some of the pitching performances the rest of the way. But long story short, the Twins score a ton of runs in the bottom of the sixth, and then top of the ninth, Cole Sands is in. I don't know what happened to that guy, man, but he has not pitched well. Mariners string together 3 straight singles to score a run, but Sands still manages to finish out the game. I mean, it would have been embarrassing if Rocco would have had to get another guy up when you have a 10-run lead to get 3 outs, Dan.
No, I was kind of surprised we didn't see Jonah Bride. I think that would have been an appropriate time when you're up 10-0 at home to say, hey, Jonah, go ahead and get us a couple outs here. But yeah, it was more embarrassing that Cole Sands could not get 3 outs without getting into trouble. And by the way, David, if your internet is giving you trouble, there's a solution here. Because Minnesota, there's a new high-speed internet sheriff in town. It's Gateway Fiber. They've landed in Blaine, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, Plymouth. With plans to expand even deeper into Minnesota, Gateway Fiber boasts a fiber optic network that exceeds the capabilities of some of the biggest players in the business, which gives you more whiz for less cost on all of your online working, streaming, and gaming. With no hidden costs, no data caps, no installation fees, Gateway Fiber is perfect for your home or business. Go to gatewayfiber.com to get fast, reliable, and affordable high-speed fiber internet.
Touch 'em all, Kirby Puckett! Puckett's Picks winner.
Finally. Dan,
yeah,
it feels like it's been an eternity since I've come away with a victory, but thank goodness I took Brooks Lee, who had 9, giving me the victory. Hoax took Correa. He didn't really take Correa. We took Correa for him because he was either in Italy or over the Atlantic. I don't know where he was at that time. But he took Correa, who had 7. The listeners took Buxton, who had 2. Dan, you went with Bader, which was an interesting choice, and he did about as well as you could hope. I was so disappointed
he didn't play in game 4 at all, which is when he could have gotten one of those hits off a position player or something like that. But no, -1 for Bader.
Well, season standings here then, Dan. Hoax is still in the lead, unfortunately, at 10.5. I have taken my rightful spot back into second place at 7.5. You're at 7, and the listeners are at 5. Still, Dan, anybody's game here on the season. This is far from over.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's like the AL Central, but I think the Tigers are more ahead than Hoax is ahead of us. So we'll see.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
Yeah, so I'm going to give it to Joe Ryan here. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 8 strikeouts. And again, the team does not help him here. They commit 2 errors and a couple of dumbs, I'd say, behind Ryan, and Ryan still managed to get the job done. This was so important coming off the back of these starts from Ober and Paddock, if you can even call them that. I don't even want to call them starts, Dan, but thank goodness for Joe Ryan being maybe the most unstable person, but the most stable pitcher. Is that a good phrase?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to talk about it. He was a great start. I'm going to go with the starter in game 4, SWR. And thank goodness, by the way, they played the rain out perfectly here, right? Because they didn't try to start it before the rain fell. So he gets a shutout 5 innings. I do think that this was the right time to pull him, and that will come back in the Minnesota moment a little bit later. But good for him for his confidence, obviously. But the team needs starting pitching, especially the way that things are going with Bailey Ober.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Ober, way to segue to yourself, Dan. The old alley-oop off the backboard to yourself there, Dan.
Well, so Bailey Ober is eating innings in a way that he was not allowed during the piggyback era from a couple years ago. But, I don't know how to handle Bailey Ober here. Should we be pleased that he gave up 7 runs in the 7 innings he was allowed? Because this is very bizarre. I put him on my bench because he gave up so many, and, game 1 was lost kind of because of him. But, I also admire the man for doing as much as he has.
It's weird. So there were a couple of different articles that came out that he had made some adjustments mid-game that really turned things around for him. And obviously, the stats bear that out. I don't really know what to do here, Dan. With Bailey Ober, he's an established guy, and he's just sort of going through it right now. But if he could make that little tweak, whatever that was, in his mechanics, and he managed to settle down and shut down the Mariners for a few innings there, why can't he start the game that way, Dan?
Well, so that's what I wonder. So it's kind of like when you sit down and you've prepared a wonderful meal for your family, and you're ready for your children. I did this week. I made a delicious soup that I thought, but I'd never made it before. And about half of my children were okay with it. And the question was, do I pivot And like, do I throw some corn dogs in the oven like midway through just to kind of mollify them? Or do I like really double down and say like, no, you need to eat this food? Like, I think Bailey Ober went the corn dog route and he just said, you know what, forget it. Like, we're just going to get you guys satisfied. Like, we're already down, 7-0? Like, what does it really matter? We just need to have a good bedtime. Like, I think that's the route that Bailey went.
Ogres are like onions. End of story.
I gotta be honest, I lost you after soup.
No, that's a good
I don't
example.
know. I don't know that we were still talking about.
Okay, so
I think you just wanted to talk about your soup. Can you just? You better tell folks what the recipe is, or people are going to be in their car thinking.
Interesting, yeah. So because we have a lot of fresh vegetables this time of year. So anyway, it was a simple chicken broth with an onion base. I also put in some greens and then some sausage and some cannellini beans. Like, it was a good soup, and actually half of my children really liked it, but the other half didn't like. This actually reminds me of the metaphor I gave last time. So I mentioned how like that that Dan Gleim was like an elf standing in Mordor. I should have said he was like an elf singing the praises of Sauron, like more like in Hobbiton, because I feel like that would have fit the metaphor better. I felt compelled to correct
Sometimes
that.
I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
I don't even know.
Are you telling me you never throw corn dogs into the oven like midway through a meal where you're like, fine, I just need you to eat something before bedtime?
Oh no, I start with corn dogs. We don't. No, that's not exactly true. No, it is true, 100%. So what we always do is we sort of have the meal that we've made for the people who are going to eat it.
Sure.
And then for the children, our youngest, honestly, if he eats anything, we're thrilled.
Sure.
I don't even care. I don't care what it could be off the ground. As long as he's getting food in his body, I'm thrilled. But for our older daughter, we'll make a separate food for her, something that we know that she eats and is relatively healthy. But she has to eat what the grown-ups eat. She has to eat a portion of that to so that she's.
We should start another. We got the film podcast, and we should have a parenting podcast too, David. I really feel like we're building.
It should be the Truman Show. We should never be off air. We have enough anecdotes, I think, to get us through 3 podcasts. Why not, Dan? I don't even know where we are.
Well, we're in Beast versus Bench, and it's your bench here.
My bench.
Your
okay,
turn
so I'm going
here.
to give it to Chris Paddock. He needed to provide more for a team that needed length, is honestly what he had to do. Here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this play in the top of the third. So the Mariners hit 2 straight singles, and then Crawford gets up, and he hits a sac bunt, but he reaches on a throwing error from Paddock. First of all, it really bothered me that they called this a sac bunt, because I think it would have been a very close play, even if Paddock manages to make the play. But my concern is here, Paddock should have let Lee play that ball, and I honestly think they would have gotten Crawford. But if you're the scorekeeper there, Dan, you can't score it that way. You can't score it like, well, it was an error because had Lee fielded it, he would have got, you know what I mean? You can't do that. Like, you can't do this. My back. I think that it was just a frustrating play to watch because Paddock, just looking at it, Lee is standing right next to him.
Totally.
Paddock has to reach down, pick up the ball, and turn and throw, where Lee could do that all in one motion because he's facing the right direction. Dan, it's like, you know when your kids try and help you move something and they don't understand where they should be standing to help you move it?
Cows.
They don't understand, Dan. They need to be told. And I think in that moment, I honestly think Brooks Lee felt a little like, hey, I'm the younger guy here. I got to let Paddock make the call. No, Brooks Lee, that is your ball. 10 times out of 10, throw out Crawford, get the out. Instead, you got bases loaded, and it leads to this big bases-loaded single by former twin Donovan Solano. Mariners are up 5-0 at the end of that one day.
I know, but we just watched a series where Brooks Lee looked totally inept at third base, so you can't blame Chris Paddock for saying, like, dude, rookie, I'm going to take this ball for you.
Okay, that's another layer, I suppose. If you're saying that guys should be cutting off other guys because they didn't have a good series the time before.
No, I think maybe he's just played next to Carlos Correa long enough where he's used to deferring here. Anyway,
that's a more reasonable take than Paddock being like, well, Brooks Lee, you were really bad last series. I'm going to cut you off.
Well, and he shouldn't be making it a Brooks. I mean, Brooks Lee has been playing actually really well overall, I would think.
Yes.
No, that's a good point. We should move on here, though, to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
Hopefully the rest of these segments get shorter. This is going to be the longest episode ever. Game 2, bottom 6. This is what I don't understand, Dan. So the Twins have a chance. They got Wallner on third. It's 1 out. It's a tie game. Cody Clemens, Dan, is the only guy who's done anything offensively for this team in the last couple of games. And he pinch hits Willie Castro for Clemens, a guy who had hit a homer earlier in the game. I just think in that moment, Dan, there's not a lot to be gained. I think you let Clemens hit there.
Hang on a minute. We could use a pinch.
Rocco's had so few chances though to do anything managerially lately that I think he just kind of struck on this. It was odd because Castro's also not been the healthiest guy later. I think that was a crucial mistake. And again, because it's a tie game at that point, you kind of just let Cody Clemens hit.
Yeah, when he can hit a fly ball. You know what I mean? Like, Castro, how many times do I have to say this? The issue with Castro is never physical. It's always mental. I don't know that that's the situation you want Willie Castro to be in, where you don't care if it's a hit. You just need a ball hit to the outfield.
No, I would have him lay down a bunt, if anything, and have Wallner going home on that. Like, which we have not seen as much this year. I would like to see that a little bit more.
Well, and Wallner, he might be sneaky quick, but he's not quick enough for, I think, a squeeze play here. And once that moose gets going, I love that Brooks Lee's in the dugout doing the moose hands, whenever Wallner gets a hit. Big fan of that.
All right. So again, as I did last series, I'm actually not going to look at Rocco, but I'm going to look at the other manager. I'm going to look at Dan Wilson. So I'm going to call this Wilson's Wonderings, which is very handy that these alliterations keep working. So game 4, bottom 6. So the Twins are up 2-0. And then Dan Wilson brings in a guy named Zach Pop. Now, Zach Pop has been around a little bit. I can't blame people for not knowing who he was. He's been with Miami. He's been with Toronto. And now he's here with Seattle. And as this inning went on, you could see that the Mariners were not going to be able to hold on to this game at all at any point. Pop ends up pitching an inning, and he gives up 8 runs in this one inning. And you got to be thinking as a Twins hitter, you're like, are they going to leave this guy in? And then they are. And the Twins just kept getting hits and hits and hits and hits and hits. Now, one of those runs was unearned because of an error. But let's be honest. I mean, Zach Pop was being left in there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's released by the time that the next series begins. But I bring this up because I think
Twins will probably pick him up.
Well, I know because a lot of Twins fans, I think, look at this and they would say, well, that's how Rocco manages in losses. And I just wanted to remind Twins fans that, like, other teams do this too. Like, once you're already down, you don't assume that once you're down 4-0, you're going to come back in the game and win this thing. And so I thought this was just like, yeah, this is how Rocco would have handled it too. I just think I'm curious to see whether Zach Pop survives this, because if this was a Twins pitcher, you can almost guarantee he was DFA'd by the next morning.
Oh, definitely. Well, let's keep pushing here, Dan, into happier times in the Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
So we have a little bit of recency bias here because game 4 was obviously today and it was a rain out and such and such. But game 4 top 6, so this is after SWR was pulled at 82 pitches. Brock Stewart comes in and he held scoreless the top of Seattle's lineup when it was 0-0. And he did give up the first out, but then he's got to face Rodriguez. He's got to face Raleigh, and he held them down. And this comes on the heels of a performance, last series when he gave up the game-winning run in one of these situations. So I thought that was the key moment because it allowed the Twins then to get to the bottom half of the inning and really break the game open.
It wasn't 0-0, Dan. It was 2-0 actually. True. Just as important. It doesn't take away the importance of the moment. And I just want to note the strikeout to end the inning of Arozarena was a full count, 96-mile-an-hour fastball, middle. And the thing is, if Randy Arozarena hits a home run there, I'm not mad at Brock Stewart.
What?
Because a 3-2 pitch.
Oh, because you don't want him to walk him.
You can't toy. You can't toy with it. You got to make sure it's a strike. And so I think sometimes people, they put this on me that they're like, you don't ever like a pitch to be in the zone. And it's like, no, that's not my take even a little bit. If you listen to the show even once or twice when I'm having these tirades about where pitchers are locating pitches, that's a time where a middle pitch is what's called for. It's when the pitchers are ahead in the count and they're putting balls at 96 middle. That's when I have a problem.
No, that's a good point. And again, key moment of the series, I thought. But you want to look to the next half.
Well, I just think it was so nice that I didn't have to sit on the edge of my seat for the rest of the game with the Twins holding on to a 2-0 lead. So bottom of the 6th, the offense finally steps up. Brooks Lee starts the inning with a solo shot. So I was home at this point because of the way that the timing worked out. And so I was actually at my computer. Normally I'm like texting myself notes about what I want to put into the notes on the show. But so I filled out the cell, Dan, and I had to keep adding cells to make sure it was big enough to hold all the notes here. So Twins are up 3-0 at this point. Then you have Jeffers walks, Clemens walks, Buxton with an RBI double, which watch the replay on that because Buxton knew that was going to be a double down the line the whole way. And just the way his eyes watch the ball as he makes contact, a beautiful piece of hitting is all I want to say there. But anyway, Larnach then hits it hard to Williamson at third. He gets credited with an error, which is a bummer. he knocks it down, but the ball was hit so dang hard. But anyway, that allows Clemens to score, Buxton to advance to third. Castro then hits a ball at the deep left, watches it, Dan. He thinks it's gone. There's no question he thinks it's gone. Now, it doesn't really matter because Clemens stops at third anyway, so Castro gets the RBI double. It just bothers me that he watched it instead of running, Dan. It's a mental issue. It's never a physical issue with Castro. Twins are up 6-0 at this point. Then a 2 RBI single by Correa. Twins are up 8-0. It just keeps going, Dan. It keeps going. Wallner then with the 2-run homer. So the Twins are up 10-0. And I finally thought, okay, even if they have to throw Jonah Bride for some reason, if there's a catastrophe in the bullpen where they all ate bad chicken, like the Twins should still be able to win this game.
And they do. Yeah, they do. So it's 10-0 at that point, and you're thinking, this is weird. We haven't seen this from the Twins team for a long time.
No, exactly. Well, let's go here, Dan. Mauer's musings. We each have some future-looking questions.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
Yeah, sure. So I think mine kind of leads into yours pretty well. So we're halfway through the season, right? The Twins are 39-42. They're in third place here. So they're 11.5 games behind the Tigers, but they're only 2.5 out of the wild card. They're only 2 games behind the Guardians, who are 40-39. So my question is, who is actually part of the core to this team going forward? Which I guess what I'm asking is, who's untradeable for this team right now?
Yeah, so I think this is a trickier question because part of it depends on the return, obviously, right? Because there's some guys who have taken steps here. Trevor Larnach is a guy who I would not have predicted to have the season that he's had currently. Ty France has been a huge addition to this team. So, but the thing is, Ty France, Harrison Bader, a lot of those guys are on 1-year deals that they could walk or there's an option, whatever the case may be. But so if I'm the front office and I'm thinking, if I'm not tearing it all down, if I'm thinking next year is going to be a year where we're going to compete, I think you keep Buxton, you keep Wallner, you keep, I mean, this is the no trade clause stuff, obviously.
Totally.
I'm just taking out of the picture. But so you have Lee, obviously, you have Larnach, and then it gets a little bit more like, well, let's see, from a position player side. For the rotation, I think that's pretty obvious. Ryan, Ober, and Pablo are untouchable. Obviously, Pablo on the IL right now. The relievers, this is where I struggle, honestly, because so many guys talk about, well, they have a lot of depth from the relieving position. Yeah, you do. It's just, it does seem like relievers are easier to come by, so it is easier to trade from there. But I still think if you have that top 2 of Duran and Jax, I don't know that I want them to go. And now I'm putting Louis Varland in that category also, Dan. I think those 3 you keep. The rest of the world, I think, is open to be traded, Dan.
The problem with that is that you're not offering any of the guys who have a ton of value for other teams at this point.
Well, I think Harrison Bader and Ty France could get you something.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I agree. But I don't know that I'm willing to trade any of those guys because I don't think I'm going to get major league ready talent who are as good or better than those guys.
No, and I guess there's 2 things we should note here. So Austin Martin now is back with the St. Paul Saints, which I think is significant because they think they see him as a piece and he's on the 40-man. Royce Lewis is going to begin a rehab stint on Friday with the Saints as well, which is a good sign, obviously, because it's that hamstring injury. I think I'm kind of with you in the sense that I don't know that I want them to trade a lot of these key pieces right now because I want them to be part of the team next year. And I do think that this team has kind of had a confluence of unfortunate events kind of conspire to where they're at right now. And yet this injury to Pablo sinking the team seemingly has really kind of shown some weakness here. We were talking a month ago about how we didn't see any gaps in this team, really. But now, as it turns out, not having your ace and having Ober not pitch very well, having Joe Ryan kind of not be great, Paddock not be great. I just think this is, I don't know, it shows you the fragility, I guess, of a Major League Baseball team, and yet I don't want them to give the pieces away.
Keep the pieces. My question, though, actually comes from the mailbag that Dan Hayes of The Athletic had, where somebody asked about if Buxton should be traded this offseason, because if the season continues in this way, it's going to be his best season by far. The problem is here, first of all, so people understand Buxton's contract, he's got a full no-trade clause through 2026, and then in 2027 and 2028, he can block trades up to 5 teams. So Buxton has a lot of control over his own future. So if, let's just assume, Buxton has, let's say he wants to play for the Braves. He grew up in Georgia, that's who he wants to go play for, or the Yankees come calling, or the Dodgers, or, one of the big-name clubs who are going to be constant contenders, or there's some sort of familial connection for Buxton. And so he waives the no-trade clause. Would you trade Byron Buxton, Dan?
I mean, obviously, I'm going to say no because I think that he's such value.
I know it's a dumb question to ask
contractually.
you of all people.
But yeah. I do think that I wonder what you could. I saw this. I wonder what you could get for him. I mean, like right now when he's got an OPS of 900 and something like that, I do think that other teams might be willing to kind of overlook the injury history at this point if they needed a guy for the rest of the season. So I'm going to twist your question and say I think they get a lot for him right now, but I don't want them to trade him because I think if we can see this version of Buxton for the next couple of years, I don't want to unsee that.
Well, it's a great way to say it. And Dan Hayes also pointed out, like, Buxton is worth so much right now because he's being paid so little for the services that he's providing. Like, $15 million is a lot to you or I, but $15 million for a guy who's performing at Buxton's level is nothing. And so the problem is, if this team is truly thinking this is not the group to do it, this is not the group to get it done, then trade Buxton when he's at his highest value, no matter how much it's going to hurt. I think you have to do that. I'm not willing to say that this core can't get it done. I do think they need to add a couple pieces, especially in the offseason, who knows? Maybe they go on a run here and this season is still possible, but it just seems like those teams that are in the upper echelon, Dan, feel so much higher than this Twins organization right now.
And we've watched them play so many of these teams that are kind of in that wild card mix. We'll see. They play the Tigers next series. I think that'll tell us a lot.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and grade this series, Dan.
Series grades.
I'm going to give them a C- here. It would have been great to come back with a series win, but thank goodness they won the last one and at least get a split. I just didn't really appreciate how sloppy the defense was at times, and I just think that starting pitching didn't give you enough. One weird play I want to talk about, too, one of the dumbs, was a Willie Castro sort of not thinking play where the Twins should have turned 2. They got 1 out, but Willie Castro basically tried to cut in front of Correa to get to this ball, and then he couldn't stop his momentum, so Correa had to make this awkward throw to second to make sure he recorded 1 out. It's just, there were a lot of plays that should have been made in the field, and it should have been a much cleaner series. I don't think they win game 1 regardless. Maybe they have a better chance in game 2 with a little bit sharper defense. Just a frustrating series overall from a baseball perspective, but obviously game 3 and game 4, what a turnaround. It
was such a different series than the series that Hogs and I saw in Seattle. I mean, those were well-played games with competitive teams. This was like a tale of two series, right, in the way that things went. So I'm going to kind of summarize here, but I thought momentum, decision-making, and the youth were really positives overall for this team. I thought the stars and the mids were okay. I ended up with a grade of 19 out of 25, which ends up being a C. They did more in this series to give us some hope here that they could move forward, but I think the big test is going to be the series here in Detroit.
If they go and get swept, it wouldn't shock me. If they go and they win 2 of 3, it wouldn't shock me either, to be honest with you. I am excited to see Javi Baez live on my TV screen, Dan. I think Hogs said I had too much of a crush on him, I think.
It's like me and Aaron Judge.
Yes, very, very much so, Dan. You know what else I have a crush on, though, Dan? Pulled pork. I'm sorry. Delicious. Sometimes I feel bad about how much I love pulled pork. For all of the other meat products that I could choose to put on the grill, Dan, or put in the crock pot, I'm always finding my first love of pulled pork. But Dan, when I want to spice up that pulled pork, let me tell you, I grab a jar of Jimmy's coleslaw dressing and I give that slaw the zing and zip that not just me, Dan, everyone talks about it. But it's available in original, fat-free, and pineapple. Jimmy's is family fun and locally owned, delicious on burgers, brats, pulled pork, of course, and as a summertime side. You can't go wrong with Jimmy's. Jimmy's salad dressings and dips. Don't you be messing with my dressing.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
First question, Dan. I get 6 emails a day from the Twins telling me I need to vote in the All-Star Game ballot process. Do you only vote for Twins, Dan, when you vote in the All-Star Game, or do you vote for the players who actually deserve it?
No, I vote for the players who deserve it here. So I would vote for Buxton right now. I would vote for Joe Ryan, but I guess you can't really vote for pitchers, right? It's
a little weird.
So I think the only guys right now, I could maybe, hedge a vote for Correa because of his defense, but I think that's about it.
Yeah, you have a question here about the MVP race, Dan.
Right. So after watching Cal Raleigh, I had this conversation today with somebody that I ran into who's a big Mariners fan. Is Raleigh the MVP right now for the AL, or is it Aaron Judge? Judge leads in nearly every category except home runs, but like Raleigh's a catcher. He's much more flexible in that way. He had to come in today in game 4 because Mitch Garver got hurt. Is that a Mauer bias piece? What do you think?
It's a Mauer bias piece, but yes. I do think that there needs to be special consideration given that Raleigh is doing what he's doing as a catcher, which is just a position that is very hard to be as offensively productive as other positions. I don't know why that is. I think because probably so much of your time and effort is not scouting the other team's pitching.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
And less about like picking up what the opposing team's pitchers are doing. But I mean, Judge, if you look at his stat lines, they seem ridiculous. And not only does he lead like Cal Raleigh in these stats for batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS plus, Judge leads all players in those categories, Dan. So I understand this is sort of like rooting for the underdog when they're both very good ball players, but you can't have a guy who owns virtually every category. And honestly, I would put money down right now Aaron Judge hits more home runs than Cal Raleigh come the end of the season. I just think you have to go with Aaron Judge here.
All rise for Dan's Judge Love.
I don't know how I can pick somebody else, but Cal Raleigh, like for all the reasons you said, I hope that Cal Raleigh supersedes him in a way that makes it so that people have to vote for him and not Aaron Judge. But if the Yankees make the playoffs and they win the division, they win 100 games, like it's going to be hard to get away from Judge.
Yes, definitely. And then Clayton Kershaw, Dan, he only needs 5 more strikeouts to get to 3,000. He'll be the 20th to do it, the most recently since Scherzer. I have a friend who has been a strong supporter of the show for a long time. He's a big Dodgers fan, and Clayton Kershaw is his absolute favorite player. So it's fun, Dan, when we see these guys who are sort of coming into the last years, the last innings that they'll ever pitch, to kind of meet these milestones that not many guys have done before.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I'm excited to see the Dodgers. I haven't looked at the pitching schedule, and I know that's not out yet, but I would love to see, if I could see Kershaw and Ohtani when I'm down in LA, that would be pretty dang cool.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Exactly. All right, we should move on here to the picks for the Tigers series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's Picks.
The listeners are going to stick with Buxton, and then I'll go to you, Dan.
Yeah, I think I actually have to go with the most solid hitter aside from Buxton, Brooks Lee, right now.
Yeah, he's looking very good. Hogs is going to take Correa, and so I get the last pick here, and I think, man, this is hard. It's between Wallner and Larnach, and I'm not sure which at this point. I think I got to go Larnach here. He's just been so good, and I talked him up earlier in the episode, so that's what my rationale is here.
So it's interesting, actually, because the Twins game on Sunday is a night game, actually, now. I think they flexed this when the Twins were on the 13-game winning streak,
yes.
And not the latest thing here. So we will be back with you late Sunday night. Then there's the Tigers, the Marlins, the Rays, the Cubs, the Pirates, and then it's the All-Star break.
We get a whole couple of days off there, Dan. It's going to be great.
I think with that, I'm going to send us out. Folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win. You can find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platforms so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you can leave us a rating or like, we greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.